Thank you very much. Let me say how glad I am to be present with you this evening. Permit me at the very outset to acknowledge the National Heritage Council and the Oliver Regional Tambo area who have facilitated my visit here. It is also fitting on an occasion such as this to acknowledge the family of President Nelson Mandela, and in appreciation of the fact that this year has been dedicated to Nelson Mandela and Albertina Sisulu, let me also acknowledge the family of Walter Sisulu. I speak to you this evening aware that there are many events that have been organized across the world to commemorate the centenary of Nelson Mandela. But I am acutely aware that we are holding this lecture in the province of his birth, and that distinguishes this lecture from all else. I'm also acutely aware that this lecture is being held at a university that is named in honor of his comrade in arms, Walter Sisulu. And that is a second reason why this is a lecture like no other. You know, on an occasion such as this, one is tempted to follow many paths in order to immortalize a man who, through his activities, is already immortal. If I was a romanticist, which I am not, I would have said that Nelson Mandela was larger than life, almost as large as death. But there is a sense in which he was larger than death, because true icons never die. I would have said on an occasion such as this, that it is important to trace the history of a man such as that. If I was a historian, I would have gone to the year of his birth in 1918. And I would have joined my lecture with what historians have written about him. I would have moved from 1918 and talked about his education. I would have said how he joined the African National Congress. But what wisdom is there in doing what historians have done? I think that what we must do is to do other things. It would also be remiss on my part, even as I remember Nelson Mandela, to forget the unique quality of this land, which sometimes you refer to as Mzansi. There is a sense in which this land is unrivaled in many ways. This land throughout history has been responsible for the production of great men and women. If you allow me a little latitude as you master guest lecturer, permit me to remind you that this land produced Shaka the Zulu, of whom I learned in history. This land is great. Permit me also to remind us that this land produced a man who is seldom mentioned in history, Pixley Kaisaka Seme. Permit me also to remind us that this land produced Albert Sisulu. This land produced Albert Lutuli and Walter Sisulu. This land produced Chris Hani. This land produced Winnie Madikizela Mandela. It did not stop there. This land produced Albertina Sisulu. This land produced great men like Bantu Stephen Biko. This land produced Robert Sobukwe. This is a great land. But even as we remember those important figures in history, today we are dedicating ourselves to the memory of Nelson Mandela. What should we and what must we say of Nelson Mandela? We will remember that he was jailed for 27 years. We will remember that a man who loved peace and reconciliation was forced by circumstances to be the arrow's head in the formation of Mkhonto Wesizwe. We will remember that this man sacrificed personal comfort and embraced privation for the general good. We can remember many things, but what can we remember about this man, of whom historians have written history books, of whom filmmakers have dramatized, of whom children have sung praise songs, of whom sports writers have immortalized? This man of whom the spiritually inclined have moralized about. What must we remember about this man? We can remember many things. But today I think that wisdom not only requires, but demands that we must ask ourselves what Nelson Mandela would have said on the 100th day of his birth, 100th year of his birth. What if he were alive today? What would he have said? And I suspect he would have said many things. I think Nelson Mandela would have remembered the year 1965. He would have said that in that year, when I wrote No Easy Walk to Freedom, I was thinking about one of the most pernicious regimes that the world has ever known. A regime that institutionalized racism, a regime that proceeded on the assumption and on the practice that men should be judged by the color of their skin and not by the content of their character. I think he would have remembered that through sustained effort, that regime was brought down. I think Mandela would have reminded us that in 1960 there was a massacre in Sharpeville. He would have reminded us. He would have reminded us that in 1976 there was another massacre in Soweto. He would have reminded us. But he would not have stopped there. He would have reminded us that it was through the corporate agency of men and women who are prepared to lose their lives that the apartheid regime was destroyed. But he would not have stopped there. He would have told us that history is only valuable to the extent that it reminds us and warns us at once that we must never repeat the mistakes that we make. But he would have gone silent and said that the tragedy of humanity is that we learn nothing from history. He would have reminded us, as he looked at this continent, he would have reminded us that as he fought in the 1950s and 1960s, the entire continent of Africa was under the colonial yoke. He would have reminded us that we Africans have suffered more than any other race. He would have reminded us that there was a time when globalization meant the slavery of Africa. He would have reminded us that there was a time when slavery lost its value and luster, that there are men and women who came from Europe and took away our freedom and took away our land. he would have reminded us. He would not have stopped there. He would have reminded us that through our own effort, in the 1950s and 1960s, we liberated ourselves, and that the 32 heads of states and government who were then alive sat down in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, in the month of May 1963. And each one of them spoke eloquently and passionately, reminding us that the acquisition of flag independence was just but the beginning. He would have reminded us of the speeches of many great men who sat on that day. He would have told us that the host on that day, Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, reminded the hosts that Africa can only regain our esteem if our people are free and if she exploits our resources. He would have not stopped there. He would have gone ahead and reminded us that even before we met in Addis Ababa in 1963, the neo-colonial project was alive and well, and that the neo-colonialists had already killed Patrice Emery Lumumba in 1961. He would have reminded us. He would not have stopped there. He would have gone ahead and gone through the speeches of all the leaders that were present on that day, on the 24th day of May 1963, and would have reminded us of the speech of Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere, and would have told us, Mwalimu told us we came here to Addis Ababa not to unite, but to underscore the fact that without unity, we will be recolonized again. But he would have concluded with the speech of that great man, Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. And he would have told us that Nkrumah warned us that if we don't unite, we will be colonized again. And he would have said that as I look at Africa today, I ask myself the question, has Africa liberated herself from our own self-declared enemies? The enemy of poverty, is it dead and buried? Have we written the obituary of poverty, you would have asked? Have we written the obituary of ignorance, you would have asked? Have we rewritten the obituary of disease and sorrow and want? Are we at the dinner table of civilization as equal partners, or we still reside in the menu to be consumed by other civilization? Madiba would have asked. And I think that Madiba would have surveyed the continent of Africa seeking evidence whether the continent of Africa is truly liberated. He would have started from Cape Town. And he would have looked at Cape Town and said, yes, we liberated ourselves and there is liberation from political apartheid. But he would have asked rhetorically, is there a possibility that there is economic apartheid? Madiba would have posed. And he would not have stopped there. He would have gone to Namibia and asked, is it different now that we have an African government? Are the young men and women who are resident in Namibia liberated? Do they have opportunities for innovation and invention? Are they tilling their land? Are they getting the fruits of their labor? Are they exploiting their minerals? Or they are merely workers, hewers of wood and drawers of water? He would have asked of Namibia, but he would not have stopped there. He would have gone to Botswana and asked, who eats the choicest meat from Botswana? Are they eaten in South Africa or in Europe? He would have asked. But he would not stop there. He would go to Swaziland, to Lesotho, to Mozambique, to Malawi, to Zambia, to Angola. And he would ask the same question, have we liberated ourselves? And he would have gone to the Democratic Republic of Congo, that country that God so endowed. And he would have asked, is the spirit of Patrice Emery Lumumba settled? He would have wondered, how can it be that a country that is so endowed is the poorest on earth and in the continent? He would have posed. Madiba would have cast his eye and would have posed the question, did we not fight and attain independence that we may not fight against each other? He would have asked, are we still fighting and killing each other? And he would have sought evidence in order to determine whether we have liberated ourselves from the pain of killing each other. Madiba would have gone to Somalia. And he would have seen the bloodletting in Somalia. He would not have stopped there. He would have gone to Central African Republic, where brother is rising against brother and sister against sister. And he would have gone to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where there is an unending civil war. And he would have gone to northern Mali and to Mauritania and to Guinea-Bissau and to the southern Cameroons. And he would have come to the verdict that we have not stopped killing each other for no reason. But he would not have stopped there. He would have asked, this thing that we embrace called democracy, have we become the richer or the poorer because of it? He would have looked at a few leaders in different parts of the world, and he would have used an African proverb to injunct those leaders by telling them, no matter how good a dancer you are, you must leave the stage at a certain time. He would have told them that leadership is a relay race. He would have told the leaders in Africa that true success is when your successor succeeds, and that there is wisdom just as we can borrow from the ocean. Just as wave pushes wave to renew the ocean, so new blood and young blood must push old blood in order to renew society. And Madiba would not have stopped there. He would have asked, how is it that a continent that is so endowed, because Africa is endowed. If you go to the west of Africa, you would have said, don't we have cocoa in Ghana? He would remind us, did we not call Ghana Gold Coast before we renamed it because of the gold that resides there? He would have asked, but who makes the cocoa? How is it that the cocoa that is produced in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire is then converted into chocolate in Switzerland and in Belgium? He would have posed the question, how is it that the tea that is produced in Kenya is taken to the United Kingdom and upon a little addition is then christened British tea? He would have asked. He would not have asked it, stop there. He would have asked, how is it that gold and diamond that is produced in Africa is traded in the London Stock Exchange? He would have asked. Madiba would have asked, why is it that Africa produces what it does not consume and consumes what it does not produce? Madiba would also have wondered whether slavery is alive and well or it is dead. Because Madiba would have looked at the goings on in Libya And he would look at black men and black women being sold like chattels. He would have seen dinghies drowning in the Mediterranean Sea, capsizing and drowning people in the Mediterranean Sea. He would have seen young men and young women being rejected at different ports in Spain and Italy and Malta, and he would have asked, are we children of a lesser God? He would have asked. He would have posed many questions. How is it that a continent that has 1 billion people is still at the bottom in all indices of human development? He would have posed. But Madiba would not have drowned himself in sorrows and lamentations. He would have prescribed solutions. He would have said, Africa must unite. But he would have exhorted us that our unity must not be at the level of sloganeering and mere rhetoric. He would have said that if Africa wants to be recognized amongst the community of nations as a continent that is worthy, as indeed it is worthy, those who are in political leaders must be men and women who recognize that political leadership is indeed a trusteeship on behalf of the people. He would have reminded us, as a South African friend of mine told me yesterday, that the time has come that we must do away with dealers and have leaders instead. He would have reminded me, as a South African friend of mine told us, that we must, in this day and age, do away with cheaters and have teachers instead. Nelson Mandela would have recognized that Africa can indeed liberate herself. He would have told the Africans in SADC, the time has come that the region must allow free movement of labor in a manner that allows people to exploit their potential. But when in SADC, Madiba would have concerned himself with two key things. He would have said, how is it that corruption is still a scourge in our midst? He would have posed the question, why is it that we have in many parts of SADC men and women whose appetite for public goods is insatiable? He would have asked, why is it that men and women are in the business of stealing on an industrial scale? He would have asked, have these men heard about the story of Alexander the Great, who on the day of his death told those who are present that on the day of my death I want you to do the following things. Let it be that when I am dead, let my coffin be carried by all the physicians. And once that is done, let it be that all the gold that I gathered be sprinkled on the path to my coffin. And let it be that when I die in my coffin, let my hands be outstretched. And upon being asked why he gave those uncommon instructions, he said, let the doctors carry me that humanity may know that no matter how great you are, when the time of your death comes, even the best physicians cannot cure you. And let it be that when they sprinkle the gold that I have on the path to my grave, let it be known to them that gold and silver is useless. And let them be reminded that when I outstretch my hands, I'm telling them, and into the world I came empty-handed, and empty-handed I leave. And our prayer is that those thieves will listen to him. Having told them that corruption is a bad thing, Madiba would not have stopped there. Madiba would have reminded them that the last colonial question is land. And that until the day that you tackle the question of land, you shall never know peace. You shall never know true peace, the peace that surpasses all understanding. And he would have told those who are listening to him that every situation demands a solution that is unique to its circumstances. He would have prevailed upon the South Africans that the solution lies within yourselves, but that there is wisdom in resolving the problem rather than postponing the problem. And I have no doubt that you would have listened to Madiba. And he would not have stopped there. He would have gone to Central Africa. He would have gone to the Comesa region and told the Congolese and those who are engaged in war that the time has come that the guns must remain silent, and they remain silent forever, so that our young men and women who are running to United States of America and to Europe to flip hamburger and to be enslaved should stop doing so, because Africa has opportunity for them. But he would not have stopped there. Madiba would have gone to the northern part of Africa and told them that the last time I checked, it is only unity that defies color and gender that is sustainable. Madiba would have told us to unite. Madiba would not have talked for too long, because he would have recognized, like Pharisees, that when you speak for too long, you are in danger of merely repeating the things that you said. Madiba would have told us that the wisdom of the occasion now demands that those who are invited to speak on the occasion of his centenary must now learn to conclude their speeches. And if I was listening, I would have listened to Madiba, and I would have started concluding my speech in the following way. I would have said that on an occasion such as this, what we learn about people like Nelson Mandela is that they did not live in vain. Indeed, as they used to say of the kings of old, Mandela is dead, long live Mandela. Long live Mandela, because there are many Mandelas now. The spirit of Mandela is alive and well. And I hear that spirit speaking through the vicissitudes of time, telling us many things, telling us, create an education sector that not only schools our children, but educates our children. I hear the voice of Nelson Mandela telling us through the vicissitudes of time, build hostels, so that our leaders and our men and women do not run away to India and other parts of the world to seek treatment when we have the ability to cure ourselves here. Madiba would have told us, build factories and ensure that the opportunities for young men and women so that they may not engage in antisocial activities because they have no opportunity to survive, and they have to behave in a manner that we do not like, but we have created and compelled them to behave. He would have spoken through time and told us that time has come that we must take care of the social welfare of our women. He would have told us, how can it be that a society that is so progressive and looking to the future can still continue to treat our women and other marginalized people as if they were not equal to us? He would have told us, the last time I checked, on the day of creation, God said, let there be a help. And he would have told us, help each other. And I have no doubt that we would have listened. Madiba would have concluded with South Africa, and he would have gone to speak to Africa. He would have sat at the hall named after him in Addis Ababa, the Nelson Mandela Hall. And he would have addressed the 55, or is it 54 heads of states and government. He would have told them that I am aware in the year 2013, you sat in this hall and came up with something that you call Agenda 2063. That I hear that Agenda 2063 has 7 pillars. That I'm also told that in 2015, the chairman of the AU Council, Kozan and Lamini Zuma, wrote an imaginary letter to Kwame Nkrumah. I have read that letter wherever I am. And I'm now reminding you, you leaders sitting here, beyond the rhetoric, go down into action. Beyond the rhetoric, go out and create jobs. Beyond the rhetoric, go out and create opportunities. Beyond the rhetoric, go out and solve the problems. Beyond the rhetoric, go to every country that is at war. But Madiba would have been very specific. He would have told the leaders of South Sudan, change your ways. He would have told the leaders of Cameroon, change your ways. He would have told the leaders who refuse to leave office, change your ways. He would have told the leaders who don't want to do the right things, change your ways. But he would also have appreciated a few things. He would have said, I see some good things happening in Eritrea and Ethiopia. I see some good things happening in Tanzania. But remember, he would have reminded the people that democracy is only protected by eternal vigilance of the people, and that power tends to corrupt, and that absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. He would have reminded the people that the safety of the leaders not only requires but demands that the people be kept in the most profound ignorance. Therefore, liberate yourself from ignorance, that you must ensure that your leaders are doing that which is good and right for you. Madiba would have now gone down to conclude. And he would have said, you Africa, remember that you are a continent that is not standing alone. You are part of the international community. He would have reminded Africa about a few things. He would have said, in the 13th century, I saw the Portuguese came here. And I saw they claimed that they discovered the Cape of Good Hope. And Africa has never been the same again. I saw the Spaniards come. I saw the English come. I saw the Dutch. I saw the Germans. I saw the French. And after they were finished with us, we had lost our lands. He would have told us, I now see the Chinese coming. I see them coming. I'm not telling you not to trade with them. Trade with them, but be careful, because all of them always started with trade and ended up conquering us. He would have told us that we have not been beaten once, we have not been beaten twice, we have not been beaten thrice, we have not been beaten 4 times, we have not been beaten 5 times, we have been beaten times without number, and time has come that we must now be careful so that we are capable of doing that which is good and right. So, my fellow Africans, Madiba would have reminded us that power still resides in us. And he would have reminded us that this country is the country that reminded the people that power resides in them. And Madiba would have said, Amandla, Ngawetu, Maibuye, Maibuye, Viva Mandela, Viva South Africa, Viva Africa, Viva humanity, Amandla.